Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Anchor team. I'm Michael Hitchborn, and with me is my sidekick, Jim Mon.
Very good.
Why not? And so, as always, why don't we just go ahead and launch with our regular prayer, and then we'll get right into it. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et mora nobis nostri. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, several things going on that I need to update you on before we launch into this evening's discussion. First and foremost, yeah. So first and foremost, this week we put out 2 articles on our experiences with the AUSCP, the Association of United States Catholic Priests. As you know, I spent a week in Missouri, or I'm sorry, in Minneapolis, kind of observing and giving heartburn to a bunch of heretical priests and the bishops who were there. So the first article that we put out was on how same-sex marriage was being pushed at the AUSCP conference. Now, one of the things that we only got one slight detail wrong in our article. At one point in the article, we indicated that Bishop Wack was physically present at the AUSCP meeting. We got that detail wrong. He wasn't physically present. He did a video presentation and then sent it in. So he was a participant, which we said in the article, but at one point we said that he was physically there, which he was not. So we issued a correction. It's kind of interesting. Bishop Wack actually wound up publishing a statement on the diocesan website saying that, I wasn't even at the meeting. I gave a presentation, and I don't think there's anything scandalous about giving a presentation to a bunch of fellow priests trying to encourage them to live the gospel message and to, live according to the precepts of the faith, et cetera, et cetera. And he even at one point said, my presentation said nothing against church teaching or in favor of same-sex marriage or anything of the sort. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
He also addressed the fact that we used a picture of him that he personally took. It's his photograph of him with a blanket draped around his shoulders. And he's kind of going like this. So it looks ambiguously gay. And he's got this blanket draped around it. It's the little peace symbol all over the blanket, and it's done in rainbow colors. So, draw your own conclusion. But
Okay.
he said, well, no, that picture was taken 12 years ago, and people keep using this picture as if it means something that it doesn't. I took this picture while I was visiting some people in hospice care, and this was one of the blankets that they made for the people there, and they thought that it was, the rainbow colors were cheerful or whatever. So for whatever reason, he threw the blanket around his shoulders, gave kind of that look, and had someone snap a shot of him for whatever reason. Again,
Okay.
Draw your own conclusions. Anyway, we issued a correction of the article to indicate, okay, fine. Bishop Wack was not physically at the meeting. We got that wrong. However, and we've incidentally received a number of complaints that have been forwarded to us regarding that little detail that we happen to get wrong. So here is the general response that I've been sending back. I said, the AUSCP highly publicized Bishop Wack giving a presentation at their conference, further indicating the presence of Archbishop Wester and Bishop Pates, which, by the way, we physically indicated that they were there. We were able to visually confirm Archbishop Wester and Bishop Pates' presence at the conference, and one of our investigators erroneously believed he had seen Bishop Wack there as well. We have since corrected the matter. That said, The only error in our report pertained to Bishop Wack's physical presence. That he participated in the conference is confirmed by his own response. All of this having been said, I would like to address the nature of Bishop Wack's response. Had I participated in a conference, even from a distance, that turned out to have promoted same-sex marriage, my first act would be to denounce the conference, condemn its agenda, and apologize for any possible scandal that I may have caused, not to attack the integrity of those reporting on it. Furthermore, it's not as if the issues related to the AUSCP are unknown. We've been reporting on the grave issues of the AUSCP's support for women's ordination, homosexuality, and the spread of outright heresy for the last 6 years. And when we publish our reports, we email them to nearly every bishop in the country. It is highly unlikely that Bishop Wack was unaware of the AUSCP's agenda, and he would have known that by participating in the AUSCP's conference, he lends the organization his own credibility. The issue with regard to Bishop Wack's participation in the AUSCP meeting has nothing to do with what he said, and everything to do with what he did not say. He indicates that he was made aware of the article written about the AUSCP assembly, and went so far as to indicate that his presentation said nothing against church teaching, especially same-sex marriage. This implies, therefore, that he is now aware of the grave concerns regarding the AUSCP, and while he threw shade on those reporting about it, he said nothing to condemn the promotion of heresy and same-sex marriage by the AUSCP. By condemning the report and getting the detail of his physical presence wrong, while failing to condemn what the AUSCP is pushing, he provides further cover and protection, wittingly or not, for this organization. As to the top image of the article showing the 3 bishops and the photo of the bumper sticker at the AUSCP assembly, and the bumper sticker was the AUSCP, one of their affiliate organizations or affiliated organizations, New Ways Ministry, had a bumper sticker saying Catholics for marriage equality. So,
yeah.
As to the top image of the article showing the 3 bishops and the photo of the bumper sticker at the AUSCP assembly, we have changed it from his image with the rainbow blanket to his official diocesan photo. But we maintain his image in the picture to illustrate that by participating in the AUSCP event, without qualification or condemnation of the AUSCP agenda, he has lent his own credibility and provided further legitimacy to this heretical entity. Should he forcefully condemn the AUSCP, we will happily update our story and produce a follow-up report indicating his courage. So that is our official response. By the way, somebody said my picture froze.
I didn't get that hitch.
You didn't see it? Okay.
Nope. It could be just their connection.
Okay. If your picture freezes, Patricia, just refresh, and then hopefully that should take care of it. Anyway, that's our official response to the AUSC or to Bishop Wack and his non-statement. Really, he all he did was throw shade at us without having any concerns or indication that he had any kind of concern for what the AUSCP was trying to promote. So that's a serious problem. In any event, going back to what we talked about, the second article that we put out about the AUSCP this week was about Archbishop Hebda sending Bishop Pates to the AUSCP meeting to welcome them. Apparently, because we sent a letter to Archbishop Hebda saying, hey, this is going on in your diocese. Here are several articles that we've written showing from their own writings that the AUSCP is promoting women's ordination, promoting same-sex marriage. They're undermining the faith. Please, make a statement to condemn the organization and prevent your priests from being there. Well, apparently, a group of people visited with Bishop Hebda, with Bishop Pates on June the 8th. And in the meeting, the reason they went to meet with him was to ask him not to go to the AUSCP meeting. And in the meeting, Bishop Pates told him, well, Archbishop Hebda asked me to go in his stead because he has a scheduling conflict. And so he asked me to show up and to be the welcomer to the AUSCP to Minneapolis. So it just kind of shows the duplicity of certain bishops' minds when it comes to how to handle these situations. The third article that we are going to be putting out next week is the testimony of a lady who was with us in our Rosary Rally. And she testified to me on video, and I have the video, that while she was talking to one of the AUSCP people, what happened was the AUSCP person took out her photo or her phone and snapped a picture of her. And she said, you better delete that from your phone. And she got into a discussion, an argument with her. And the lady was there going, oh, I can't find it. I don't know where that picture is. Uh-huh. Liar. And we've got video of that, by the way. But so she's telling this story that while this is going on, one of the people there at the booth, who happens to be on the leadership team of the AUSCP, asks her point blank, why wouldn't you want to be a priest? And she says, because it's against the church. It's against what Christ said. It's against what Christ founded. And he goes, well, where's that in the Bible? And so here you have the leadership of the AUSCP actually trying to proselytize a woman into saying that there's nothing wrong with women priests. Colin says that he lost sound for some reason on his end. Did you ever lose sound from me, Jim?
No.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, Colin, I'm sorry. It must have been on your end. So that's what we've got going on. We're still wrapping up all of our investigations and stuff regarding the AUSCP. I do have some very interesting investigations that we are launching hopefully soon, one of which is going to be in Africa. I have a very strong possibility of sending an investigation or an investigator into certain areas in Africa. And this investigator is going to be able to verify some problems that we have chronicled over the years. And we pray that it will bear fruit. I'm being cagey on the details because better not to put it into a formal format until all is said and done. So one last thing. Tomorrow, I am going to St. Louis. And I'm going to St. Louis because Credo of the Catholic Laity is going to be presenting me with an award. And the award is going to be handed to me by His Eminence Cardinal Burke, which is pretty neat.
All right, Hitch.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully I'll have pictures and maybe even some video of it. And when that happens, I will be more than happy to share that with you all when the time comes.
Congratulations, Mr. Hitchborn.
With that said, thank you. Why don't we launch into tonight's topics? The first thing I want to touch on is somebody sent me an email and said, can you please cover a couple of things? And the first thing they asked about was giving an update about concerns regarding the traditional Latin Mass and the apparent efforts of individuals in the Vatican to either abrogate the motu proprio Summorum Pontificum or to somehow or some way suppress the traditional Latin Mass. So far, we don't have any solid details. It's all still in the realm of rumor. It's all still in the realm of innuendo. However, there is the Archbishop of Dijon in France that seems to think that something is coming that is going to force something to happen with regard to the traditional Latin Mass. At this point, there are no real updates beyond rumors, and I don't like dabbling in rumor. So I don't have any solid information for you at this time, but be sure that the moment that I do have real information, you'll be the first to know. So that's what I wanted to say. We don't have any solid information. Nothing has actually been written or put into official practice. It seems that if something is done, it's going to happen around the lines of the forcing of traditional Latin Mass communities to also say the Novus Ordo Mass, which is to say that the FSSP, the Institute of Christ the King, and so forth, would at some point be forced to include the Novus Ordo Mass in their lineup at their parishes. And my response to that is, okay, if that's really what you're trying to do, is to try and make sure that everybody is accepting of everything, are you then now going to force Novus Ordo communities to say the traditional Latin Mass?
Nice.
And to say the Melkite Mass, and to say the Byzantine Mass, and to say the Ukrainian Rite? You see, the thing is, the Catholic Church has a wide array of various rites of the liturgy.
Great point.
So
Maronite.
The Maronites, yes, exactly. So if they're going to force traditional Latin Mass communities to say the Novus Ordo, then by virtue of consistency, they will then have to force all the Novus Ordo churches to say every other different kind of rite there is. And that's it.
Yep.
And that's it. The next thing we want to talk about, earlier this week, I don't know if you guys saw it, but what I am going to do is play it for you because it's highly disturbing. Earlier this week, the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, an ironic title if you ever heard one, put out a song basically doing exactly what every Bond villain ever in the history of Bond movies does. As soon as he captures James Bond and ties him up and tries to set up some elaborate plan for his ultimate design or demise, he starts to explain to James his evil, horrible plan.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Bond, now that I have you and you're clearly going to die in the next 5 minutes, why not tell you my entire plan? Well, that's what the Gay Men's Choir here is doing. So without further ado, I'm going to play the song for you. It is highly disturbing, but it's incredibly telling.
Oh, yes,
So
it is.
here we go. Let me pull this up.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you. You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect.
Yep.
But you're just frightened.
Nope.
You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct.
What a creepy
We'll
woman.
convert your children.
Ugh.
Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep him from disco. Warn about San Francisco. Make him wear pleated pants, we don't care.
I didn't know that pleated pants were
We'll
straight.
convert
Apparently
your
they are,
children.
yes. I'm learning something
We'll
here.
make them tolerant and fair.
At first, I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting, caring people, but I see now why you'd have a problem with that.
Well, hell has something to do with it.
Just like you worried, they'll change their group of friends. You won't approve of where they go at night
Oh,
to
Lord.
protest. But when you'll be disgusted
So gross.
when they start finding things online that you've kept far from their sight.
Like information.
Guess what? You'll still be alright. We'll convert your children, yes we will.
reaching one and all. There's really no escaping it.
'Cause even Grandma likes RuPaul.
And the world's getting kinder. Gen Z's gayer than Grindr.
Learn to love, learn to vogue, face your fate. We'll convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to hate. We're coming for them.
We're coming for your children.
We're coming for them.
We're coming for them.
We're coming for your children.
We're coming for them.
Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children.
I've had
Oh.
enough.
Yeah, thank you. Even Grandma
Well,
likes RuPaul. Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But the rest of it is just they're droning on the chorus. But I wanted to make sure that you heard the repeated lyrics, okay? Because what they are doing in this video is laying out their plan. I mean, yes, I understand why you guys don't want to hear it and you don't want to see the video. It's gross, it's horrible. You don't want the tune in your head, and I get it. But it's important to look at the lyrics because they're outlining exactly what they plan to do. What did they say? We'll convert your children. That's what you hear, and that's the thing that's offensive to us. But what they're telling us is how they're going to do it.
Yes.
They're going to do it by having Grandma watch RuPaul. They're going to do it by getting your kids to be accepting of homosexuality. Not that they will be gay, but that they'll be allies of the gay community. And then at some point, one of your children will turn up gay, and you, mom and dad, are going to be forced into a position of accepting them for who they are. Because you won't be able to have any interaction or any contact with your kids, just like a cult, unless you embrace them for what they have accepted or what they are doing. Okay, it is important to actually listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's important to pay attention to what it is that they are saying. Because just like the Bond villain, they are outlining their entire plan. Okay? Like I said, I didn't want to play the rest of it because it's just the repeated lyrics. We'll convert your children, and etc.
But there's also another part of it too, the overt comfortable nature of it. This is a fact, and they're going to find things even though you try to hide it because it's just a question of information. And this is again the search to educate ourselves. See, if you try to hide that from them and you try to dissuade them from this and try to explain to them that it is in fact a lifestyle of sin that's leading to perdition, you're ignorant.
Right.
And the normalcy of it. I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, 30 years ago, what a beating you would catch.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, for crying out loud, we played Smear the Queer. You remember that game?
Yeah. I
You
do
throw a
actually.
football straight up in the air, and everybody on the field would go and try and smear him. Just
kill him. Right.
kill him. Yeah, exactly. Smear the queer. But now that's not PC. It's not something that you do. And so the problem is that slowly and subtly they are introducing slight homosexual, gay-friendly messages into television, into music, into online ads, visible ads. Okay. You can find out, Google the Gay Manifesto. You can see exactly what it is that they're trying to do. There's a book that was written, I think it was in 1989. Let me look this up real quick. Called After the Ball. You ever
This grandma doesn't know who RuPaul is.
what's that?
Your mother.
Oh,
Your mother
right.
wrote something.
Oh yeah, RuPaul. Yeah.
Doesn't know what this is.
Gross.
Oh, keep going. What was that? After the ball?
So After the Ball, how America will conquer its fear and hatred of the gays in the 90s. Okay. This book was, if you want to get a copy of it, it's $300+ unfortunately, and the reason that it's so expensive is because they're trying to keep it out of the hands of people who want to understand exactly what the homosexual agenda is. But it was published. Let me see when it was originally published. Let me get the exact publication date. Let me get this date. I think it was published in 89, if I remember. No, okay, so it was published actually in September of 1990. The description may be from the other edit product. Gays remain the nation's untouchables, according to the authors of this controversial look at the trampling of homosexuals by our society. After the Ball launches a double-barrel critique of both straight oppression and the misguided gay movement. So what they are doing in this book is outlining what their plan is. It is important for us to read their literature. It's important for us sometimes to listen to their music. It's sometimes important, not always, to watch their movies. To what? I can't possibly watch like Brokeback Mountain or what's that other stupid nasty movie that came out last year? Call Me by Your Name. These are it's homosexual propaganda. I can't possibly watch it, but it's important for us to pay attention, because as they are subtly enacting their plan, if we know what they're doing, we can find a way to step in and put a stop to it. We can find a way to step in and counter every move that they make. Right.
And the answer is not ignoring it, because if you look at the incremental approach on this, it started out very slowly. Now you think about it, right? In probably the early 1970s in the sitcom movement, again, to introduce, remember in sitcoms like Maude and All in the Family, gay characters were introduced. So, you know what I mean? And it goes back that far. Divorce was introduced. Yep. All of these things were introduced, and very, very incrementally, subtly at first. And look where we are now. So the point is, to your point, the Gay Men's Choir of San Francisco, as painful as it is to listen, we got to listen.
Well, and if you remember the way that they portrayed homosexuals in the movies and in television back in the 70s and 80s was always as the butt of a joke. Remember?
Yeah, generally, right.
Yeah, generally, you'd have the walk on the stage, and it was funny. It was funny because it was out of place. Right. But that was an introduction of something. So
exactly, desensitization. It was
acceptable to us because we were seeing, okay, Three's Company. Exactly. Three's Company was all about, the only reason it was acceptable for, what's his name to live with the two women was because the landlord thought he was gay.
Right.
I forgot that was the plot for the whole thing, but yeah, that's entirely true. So the whole thing is all about trying to make it acceptable and common. So you first make it common, then you make it acceptable. And after the Ball, if you remember the homosexual movement of the 80s, it was nasty. I mean, these people were militant. They were in your face. They were, they're doing the same thing they do at the Folsom Fair Parade in San Francisco anyway, which is a debauch fest. But that was endemic of the entire homosexual movement. Everything they did was in your face with all the bondage wear. Now, it's all about rainbows and relationships and holding hands.
Right.
And nobody talks about the nasty secret of the deed around which homosexuality is surrounded. So we have to look at their strategy. We have to understand what it is they're trying to do and how they are doing it and how they're trying to get into the minds of our kids.
Right. Hitch, let me jump in here too, because I think this is really key. When you think about it as well, okay, particularly with the homosexual strategy, and this is chilling. Think about the concept of community organizing with the AIDS epidemic. Do you remember this was everyone's disease? And that was the mantra that was shoved down your throat 24/7. No, it's not.
Right.
The overwhelming majority of the people who caught that were people who engaged in sodomic acts.
Yep.
I'm sorry, fellas. That's the way it goes. There was no transmission, and they dug deep and far. And every time they would, much like today, the same sort of approach. They'd find some heterosexual who was an intravenous drug user, and they would bring that person out. But I mean, the overwhelming majority was homosexual who caught that disease. And that was shoved down your throat. Again, this is all community organizing. This is all beat you to death with the one monolithic drum. Go ahead.
Right. Well, do you remember how in the 90s what the homosexuals, the militant homosexuals, were threatening to do? Stick dirty needles into theater seats and stick them,
If you don't listen to us, right? That's right. We'll make you. And I'm like, wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you start putting it all together, and again, it's important for us to pay attention to their rhetoric, because that's how we will learn how to counter them, how to protest, how to, all the things that are necessary in order to turn around what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So that song, as vile and as disgusting and as horrifying as it is, it's the Bond villain moment. It's the Bond villain is telling us his plan. Listen to him. Listen to the villain as he tells you his plan, because that's how Bond finds the weakness. He finds the weakness. The villain tells him his plan, and then James Bond says, "Well, thank you so much for telling me exactly what it is you're going to do. Now I can counter you." There it is. So
that was a pretty good Connery there, Hitchborn. That wasn't bad. Money penny.
Be careful what you shoot at. Most things in here don't react well to bullets. So there's the song. There's Sean Connery. My poor attempt at Sean Connery impersonation. Jim is going to talk to us now on something a little bit different. He's going to talk to us about Section 230 in law and the Trump lawsuit.
Yeah, I thank you, Hitch. I think this is really super important, because the reason being is that as I make my way, I don't think a lot of people understand what's going on, but I believe that this may be a way to stop the censorship that's going on in media. So we'll see. But here are the facts. In 2018, there was an extremely important lawsuit filed by PragerU. PragerU is a right of center YouTube channel started by Dennis Prager, who's actually sort of an interesting guy. He's a conservative Jewish guy, but very, very interesting. And I would say that this lawsuit was the beginning of the real fight for freedom of speech within the social media, insofar as the battle lines were drawn and the argument was at least clearly defined. Now, as everyone sort of knows, without freedom of speech, democracy, we're in deep trouble. Without it, frankly, we're dead. But we're going over this now to offer some context. Now, PragerU is a 501c3 educational company, not unlike the Lepanto Institute. Now, in 2016, subscribers to Prager started to notice that content was being taken down with such incredible extremist titles as the 10 Commandments and Are the Police Racist? So PragerU initially thought this was a mistake. There was a glitch perhaps in their algorithm program. However, they didn't find any of that. The videos were taken down under the guise of community guidelines. An actual person reviewed these and shot them down. They deemed the videos to be harmful to the community. Now, again, PragerU is right of center. And to frame this up accurately, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the use of community guidelines, in theory, is to help protect people from harmful content, particularly children. Examples are excessive violence or possibly adult content, or if you ask me, that stupid video we just saw from the San Francisco choir, but that's just my opinion. Now, the argument from them and others is that YouTube is a private company and YouTube can do anything they want. And that's not that simple. Because the argument comes down, and we're going to get to 230 in a moment, but the argument comes down to one key fact, and I think this is really, hopefully, is what's going to save the day. You have to ask yourself, are they publishers or are they public forums? Now, if they're publishers, an example of a publisher would be the New York Times. Then they could pick and choose all the content they want, but they will also be subjected to civil and criminal litigation. That's a key point. Now, if they're a public forum, as YouTube, Twitter, and all of these guys say that they're self-described public forums, They must allow for opinions with no exposure to litigation for content, but they have to allow for all types of opinions. So again, they describe themselves as public forum, but they're acting like a publisher, meaning they can pick and choose content, as a publisher, while claiming that they are a public forum, thereby insulating themselves from litigation and legal exposure. YouTube is basically acting like a publisher, but pretending to be a public forum. Now, PragerU took to court, and they took this battle to the Ninth Circuit Court of Northern California. They lost, and it was not a small defeat. As a matter of fact, there was some pretty good, that was a pretty, I guess, for lack of a better word, influential court. And effectively, this one court ruling allowed social media giants to literally have a couple more years of controlling the narrative. And I've been kind of watching this over the past few years because I'm wondering, now we fast forward to last week. Donald Trump announced a similar lawsuit, except this time he did it in the District of Southern Florida. The legal challenge here comes from the FCC, the Community Decency Act, and I was referring to this earlier, Communications Decency Act, Section 230. Again, the purpose of this discussion is to offer context. Let's look at the tally. President Donald Trump, the President of the United States, was removed from Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. This is a stunning exercise of censorship. LifeSite News in our part of the world, Catholic media, was banned for life. We experienced it here at the Lepanto Institute when we had a clinical pathologist come on to talk about the dangers of the jab. We were cited for violation of community standards. These are just a few examples. This has been going on. It hasn't stopped, and we see no end in sight. Now let's take a slightly different direction on this. For the purposes of this argument, I would like to define the deep state as government bureaucracy and administration. The CIA and the NSA, for example, and the rest of the intelligence network were always traditionally hated by the left. Fast forward, how things have changed. I mean, it's incredible. So effectively, again, to sort of put this in context, we have the deep state, and the security part of the U.S. government, the internal security part, the NSA, the CIA. We have the government itself and all the things that go with it, and the media all in bed together. Now, last week, it was reported that Tucker Carlson had his emails intercepted by the NSA. And I'm getting somewhere with all of this. How did this happen? Now, in actuality, having that email intercepted was okay because he was making overtures to President Putin of Russia to be interviewed for his show. He didn't tell anybody about it in order to keep it under the lid. It is not uncommon, since they would be monitoring a guy like Putin with emails coming from the United States. They would find an email from Tucker, right? Now, here's the problem. By law, once the email is discovered, and again, this is an American citizen with a security agency of the United States government. Once the email is discovered, an American citizen who's doing nothing wrong, not engaging in treason, the email is required to be masked, meaning that since he was doing nothing wrong, they found it by accident because it's perfectly legitimate to monitor any emails to Putin. It's illegal for them to pass the information along or even put Tucker Carlson's name on it. They can do things like an American citizen, an American journalist, but not his name. Yet they did. And they gave the information to competing media outlets. How do we know this? Because a whistleblower at the NSA approached Tucker Carlson at a social event and divulged the entire content of the email. There was no way that anyone could have known this. He did, by his own admission, he did not even tell his wife. Now, here's the bottom line, and this is what this all means, right? If this can happen to General Flynn, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, are you kidding me? It can happen to all of us. It can happen to anyone who disagrees with a Marxist leftist ideology that they're currently banging the drum on. You dare disagree with them, they will come after you, just like a banana republic. Think of the shameless actions of the social media just in the last few years. There was Russia. There was Russia and Trump, rather. The Kavanaugh hearings. Are you kidding me? That was a premeditated assassination. Then there was this minor point. You guys remember Jesse Smollett? Remember that idiot in Chicago, right? He just all of a sudden, they all jumped on that narrative like, how dare you say this about Jesse Smollett? There was the Ukraine, and of course, there was impeachment, right? Yet on the other side, let's look at this. There was Hunter Biden's laptop. Any news was censored by these guys? Are you kidding me? They shut down anybody who dared disagree. Disagree with the COVID narrative? Shut down. The jab, we brought the clinical pathologist on. We were taken off as a violation of community standards. Look, here's another example. Joe Biden. This man is clearly suffering from a medical condition called old age. Right? Look, we're all going to be there, God willing. He continually makes gaffes, looks incompetent. It's obvious. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, the elephant's in the room. What's the media response? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. The southern border of the United States is a complete mess. Months ago, they were pouring, you know, as soon as Biden took over, criminals were pouring in. And yet Donald Trump was the bad guy because he hated children. These guys have
hated children, and yet he was leading the charge in liberating children from sex trafficking.
Yes, that's exactly right. And this is going on with abandon right now. We can sit here all night with examples demonstrating this absolute incredible, hypocrisy. Bottom line, the lawsuit by Trump in Southern Florida regarding Section 230 from the FCC is imperative. Really, we got to pray this thing wins. I fear the wrong decision could continue, and if they come up with the wrong decision, we're in trouble. Yep. It's got to be one. If the District of Southern Florida does not actually rule on this in an obvious way, we're looking at another few years of one monolithic Marxist chorus, and that's what we've been seeing. I mean, Hitch, it's laughable. I mean, the things like you just kind of go where we've been so desensitized to this inherent unfairness that.
Well, here's just a sense of how desensitized we are. I'm still outraged at the late 90s, what Bill Clinton did. You remember?
Yeah.
Carnivore?
Yeah. What, Carnivore?
Carnivore.
No.
You know what Carnivore was?
No.
It was a software program that was designed for the FBI and the NSA to go sifting through emails based on keywords. And it was a huge case back in the late 90s. And as they were talking about Carnivore, there were a lot of civil rights organizations going, hey, look, this is some 1984 kind of stuff where they're monitoring your letters. No, the government does not have a right to your emails.
No, they don't.
They do not.
Nope.
But we ceded that 20 years ago. We conceded that point 20 years ago. And it was kind of a throwaway line as you were saying it. The government has a right to know who's corresponding with people overseas, et cetera, et cetera. They're watching the emails of Vladimir Putin, except the government does not have a right to look into our letters. No. And if they don't have a right to look into our letters, they don't have a right to look into our emails. That Tucker Carlson sent an email to Vladimir Putin, a private email.
Yeah.
The fact that email was intercepted by the NSA and read by the NSA should be extremely disturbing. And they are using that as common practice. They're saying that this is legitimate.
That's right. And handing it off to competing news outlets to make him to give the impression that he was acting in a form of treason.
Right.
This is what Banana Republic stuff.
Yep. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it just reminded me of Carnivore, that software where the NSA and the FBI were sifting through our emails, and every email exchange that goes on, unless it's point-to-point encrypted, like through Proton Mail,
right?
They absolutely can open your email and read everything that you say, everything, and they can save it, they can store it, and they've got terabytes of information that they are storing on all of us. Okay. They're saving our emails. They're saving our communications, whether it's through text, through Twitter, through Facebook Messenger, whatever messenger app you're using. If you're talking on the telephone, there are NSA listening devices that listen to cell phone conversations for keywords. So this idea that the government, people are kind of going, well, why are they reading Tucker Carlson's email? For crying out loud, they've been reading our emails for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
We just kind of conceded that issue.
Wow.
So Anyway, go
Incredible.
ahead. I didn't mean to
Oh
interrupt you.
no, I just wrapped it up there, Hitch. Actually,
Oh, okay.
your timing was perfect.
Oh, great. All right. Yeah. Whatever happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? Joanne asks.
Yeah, they apparently they got lost.
Yeah. Yeah. They get lost, but Tucker Carlson's gets put on the news.
Yes.
The next topic that we are going to hit upon, real quick. Let me pull up my. There we go. So, one thing that everybody wants to know, or at least wants to hear us talk about, is Father Altman. So, Father Altman officially has been removed as pastor from St. James the Less Parish. His faculties have been restricted. They are not suspended in the juridical sense. So if a priest is suspended, in other words, he doesn't have the faculties to say mass, he doesn't have the faculties to say confession or hear confession, he doesn't have, in some cases, even the faculty to wear clerical garb in public. Okay, a proper suspension would remove all of those rights. Okay,
They did it to Father Perone, I believe.
I believe they did. But Father Altman has not been fully suspended. He's restricted, but he's not suspended. What the restriction means is that he's not allowed to say public masses, and that includes mass where anybody else is in attendance. So the bishop specified that he cannot say, because a private mass, properly understood, is simply a mass that's not advertised, that's not on a proper schedule somewhere. So a priest could, go to a hotel room or a hotel conference, and he's attending the conference, and then the conference coordinator says, "Hey, we have a priest here. Can you say mass for us?" And the priest says, "Sure." Okay, that is a private mass. But the bishop specified he is not to say private masses, including with anybody else in attendance. So that's one thing. This is all intended to restrict his participation in any kind of outreach. One of the things that he was restricted from is preaching. Now, again, preaching has a very specific definition. Preaching means preaching the gospel, means going up and giving a sermon, or proclaiming the gospel message of the church. Okay, he has been suspended from that. This does not mean that he can't do interviews. It does not mean that he cannot attend conferences. It does not mean that he is not allowed to talk to people and to carry on with talking about things going on in the world. Okay, he is simply not allowed to preach. This particular restriction, the way that it is worded, is designed in such a way to be a stumbling block. He needs to be very careful about making sure that everything he does is within the lines of the law, and that means following proper definitions. When a bishop comes up with a document like this and he hands it to his priest and says, "You are suspended. You're not allowed to say private mass. You're not allowed to preach. You're not allowed to do this and that and the other thing," most of the time, the priest does not know the definitions of these things, does not know his canonical rights, and falls into the false belief that he is effectively on house arrest. That's not the case. So Father Altman is, in a way, kind of freed to go out and to take a bunch of bishops to task, should he so desire. And he can talk about, there are very serious problems in the church, and the problems have to do with that bishop and this group of priests and that group of priests and these lay people that are pushing heresy. He can go out and do that all he wants. He is well within his canonical rights to do so. And in a way, the bishop has kind of opened the door for him to do that. I don't know if the bishop is being intentional in this, but that's the effect of what the bishop has done. So the suspension, or restriction rather, and of course, all of this is couched in terms of this isn't a punishment. We're merely trying to help him to understand so that we can be more civil.
He can
And we-
take this time to reflect on his ability to be more pastoral and
Yes.
compassionate. I want to puke, Hitch.
I know it's so stupid. It's stupid.
Hitch, is he
But-
allowed to live there anymore? Do you know? Do you have any word on that?
There's no word on whether he is going to be allowed to maintain his residence in the rectory, because his 90-year-old parents are there.
Yeah.
So Holy Redeemer in El Dorado says his 90-year-old parents can't be present for his mass. That's not true, because
Yeah,
in
that's
fact,
right.
the bishop specified that his parents may be present for his mass. So he did make that concession, which is nice.
Which is nice.
How thoughtful.
He is a good guy.
Yeah. So the bishop may have done something that will cause the bishops more heartburn.
Yeah. Jim, Hitch, can I jump in a second?
Mm-hmm.
So, because this is the anchor team, I can say this, but I interviewed today, as you know, Mother Miriam.
Mm-hmm.
She had a lot to say on this, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, what'd she say?
Well,
Give us a preview.
Yeah, I'll give you the preview. These guys, she finds it, I shouldn't use the term, but infuriating what they're doing to these guys. And basically guys like Jimmy Martin are running around.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going, so all Altman and Kalchik and all these guys, she was saying all they're guilty of is defending the faith. And then she said, these are good men. And basically, this is what they're supposed to do. And they're getting persecuted, and they're good men, and they'll continue to get persecuted because that's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in her, as anyone knows, ever watched her, in her own way, very straightforward. She's no fan of this bishop, and she's caught her own, nonsense from these guys as well.
I'm sure. Yep.
Yeah, she talks about it, and because she'd actually said when she'd have said it publicly when the Pachamama first came out. Yeah, it's demonic. Hang on to your faith and just ignore it.
Yep.
Apparently that got her in trouble.
Really?
Yeah. This is. She was. She talks about this, and she won't, obviously publicly, but that's why she originally, it was the man you're going to get the award from tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
right? Was the one who kind of took under the wing, and then he kind of got on the outs after the dubia.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Then she was in Oklahoma, I believe.
Okay.
And got tossed to go to.
Right, because she was under Slattery, and then Slattery
Bingo.
he resigned because he hit retirement age.
But also the bishop that took his spot, I'm not quite sure, did not like her comment. And the bishop had said, you didn't say the Pope was demonic, but you became close. And she goes, no, I said that Pachamama was demonic, and I stand by my words. And why aren't you?
Yeah.
No,
Good for her.
she was a breath of fresh air, Hitch. So
That's
you
awesome.
guys are, but I just found her perspective, because don't forget, she's also taken her shots across the chin. That was the point of all that. She's a great woman. So go ahead, Hitch. Good. Sorry.
So anyway, that's kind of the wrap up story there. That Father Altman, the removal of his faculties to not say mass in public and all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's a hindrance to his calling as a priest. However, it does open the door in other ways, and most priests, because they view their entire priesthood around their ability to provide the sacraments. A lot of priests get cowed into towing the line or into complicity and silence.
Yes.
But Father Altman is taking the bull by the horns and saying, all right, yeah, you got to remember, this guy's a hockey player.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
He's a hockey player. He's not going to sit there and just allow somebody to check him without slamming him up against the wall.
He's a hockey player and a lawyer. That's a bad combo.
Exactly. So I think the Bishops need to look out, because in many respects we do have a champion. Just on a small private note, from this point forward, it is going to be imperative for Father Altman to kind of watch his words. Rather than being unnecessarily polemical, he's going to have to kind of use not a moderated tone, but a very careful set of chosen words, because he is going to be under a heavy canonical scrutiny. And there are penalties that are brought about for inciting riot or displeasure, disobedience against a bishop. So there are canonical penalties attached to that. So he has to be very careful about the way that he says things.
Well, that's obscene, isn't it?
Well,
they really do insulate themselves this way. I understand the office hitch. I got that. But what all he's saying is a defense of the deposit of faith.
If you watch some of his interviews,
yeah, true. Yeah, okay, gotcha. I forgot about that.
Some of his interviews, he kind of.
Great point. There's no question. Forgot that.
Let's just say his inner hockey man is coming out. So, so it's important for him to watch his words and to make sure that he's painting within the lines. Because as long as he paints in the lines,
he's okay. So Hitch, can I have something? So as opposed to, let's say, some of the things in the past that might not have been judicious, if he were to just repeat, let's say, catechesis or the position of the church, he'd be fine, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah,
that's what I thought. Okay, well, so all he's got to do is to speak the truth and leave the epithets alone, and
epithets,
epithets. Sorry, that's it. Okay, gotcha.
All right. So, moving on, the last story is yours.
Oh yeah, almost forgot. I was getting into this story. All right, this is kind of cool. So here's the last story. So in some of you guys may have seen this, but in an exclusive written interview with LifeSite News, actually, former U.S. Nuncio Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano condemned Pope Francis' recent endorsement of homosexuality promoting priest James Martin. Now I got to tell you, talk about taking the gloves off, Hitch. I always say that. Archbishop Vigano was pretty tough. Yeah, he ought to be a cardinal. Thank you. I agree with you. So I think that, like, when I say he took the gloves off, I love this. He said that the prelates who advocate the opposite of the eternal beatitude, like Supich, Tobin, Gregory, and their follows, are even more rebellious than pro-abortion politicians, that they grant Holy Communion and are themselves, quote, unworthy of celebrating the sacred mysteries. This is the closest thing to take. This is why I have to agree with the guy. I'm sorry, when you're going to do this kind of stuff, when you're leading people, first of all, by providing Holy Communion, we all know that you are effectively saying, especially when you know the person, right? If it's Pelosi or Biden, as the prelate, you are administering Holy Communion to that person, which, knowing this, you're not only putting that person's soul and salvation in danger as well as your own. It's obvious. There's no way around this, right, Hitch? I mean,
yep.
So I just think so. A couple more things. Again, took the gloves off. I'm just going to read this from LifeSite. The LGBTQ and ideology constitutes the new moral paradigm of the globalist religion of the indistinct, which is of a clear Gnostic and Luciferian matrix, which, by the way, I think is a great way to put that. Mm-hmm. Both Gnostics and Luciferian. The absence of supernaturally revealed dogma serves as the premise of a post-human super dogma in which faith is perverted into an unconditional acceptance of every sort of heresy and depravity. This, and let me just finish this, hope dissolves into the absurd claim of an already guaranteed salvation, hic et nunc. And charity is corrupted into a horizontal solidarity, deprives of its ultimate reference in God. Now, I think that, and I'll just read the last line. The activism of the Jesuit Martin foreshadows the rainbow ministry of the age of Aquarius, the religion of the Antichrist, and the worship of idols and demons, beginning with the filthy Pachamama.
Yep.
What he addressed in that one statement, I think, really hits it hits all the
encapsulates everything.
yeah, it really does. He's basically saying the New World Order, and Hitch, you've said this a lot. What do they need the Catholic Church for? Legitimacy.
Yep.
And they're talking about, kind of moving over to this unconditional acceptance of every heresy under the blanket of pastoral compassion, and the water's warm, everybody come on in. And so that turns 2,000 years of tradition, history, and dogma on its head.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, it would be such a great day to meet this guy. I just think he's a very brave guy, and he just gets out there and he writes eloquently. Don't forget, he was the guy that he wrote President Trump about the New World Order and
Yes,
the kingdom of darkness. And this guy is I'm another fan. That's the beauty of this job. You get to read, so occasionally even you get to meet some of these guys. Well, I don't know about Vigano, but you meet some of these people, but you get to keep up to date with these guys who are heroes. This guy's a hero. This guy is doing what a lot of what these brave men are doing, including Father Altman, Father Kalchek, and they're defending the faith, and it's not popular, and some of them are in hiding.
Yep.
And it's awful. And that's all I have, sir.
It is a very strange time that we live in, indeed.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a very strange time we live in. Incredible.
So one last thing I want to bring up. Oops. There we go. One last thing I want to bring up before we close out. If you have not seen, or if you've not seen my my newsletter for today, I highly recommend that you go read it. Not because I'm trying to plug myself and talk about how great it is, but because what I talk about is critical race theory, the nature of what critical race theory is, how to understand it, and how it is being used in order to take our eyes off of what is most important in this world, in order to create a more worldly society. I highly recommend you read it. Just and I'd be very interested in your thoughts on it. So if you'll just send me an email and let me know what you think about it, I'd be very interested in your thoughts, because I try to write clearly and thoroughly so that what I talk about makes sense. And let me tell you, writing about what these Marxist philosophers are saying is often an impossible task, because their words, their very words, are nonsense. They don't make sense. The communists. So you have critical race theory, right?
Yes.
Critical race theory is rooted in critical theory. Critical theory comes from the Frankfurt School of Marxist ideology,
It does.
which is rooted in the idealist theory. So they're constantly defining their theories by other theories that are themselves undefined. And they have this wraparound system, and they say, oh, well, so-and-so said about their particular theory of particulates and the particulate matter of particulates. And you're going, well, what does that mean? Well, if you don't know, then I can't really help you.
Sir Topham Hat.
Yes. But
You just hit on something. The arrogance of the delivery is half their power.
It
And so
really
if
is.
you stand up to them and go, no, and then they always resort to personal attacks, and they get off the subject. Go ahead.
Yep. But that's kind of the bottom line. So trying to explain what it is that they're trying to say, or that they're trying not to say clearly, is really hard. It's really hard. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on this newsletter, because I tried to write it as clearly as I could so that I could explain it in as basic terms as I possibly could get, without getting into the weeds. So if you could let me know what you think.
You didn't call me about this. I speak dumbed down. I could have dumbed it down. I'm very good at that.
Yeah, I probably could have. I've got Rob for modernist and you for dumbed down.
Dumbed down. I could boil anything down. What do you
There
want?
we go. All right. Well, it is 8:00. I have to get up at 3 a.m. for a flight to St. Louis. So I am going to say sayonara. Why don't we go ahead and close with our prayer?
All right, buddy.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus nunc et in hora mortis nostri. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right. God bless you all, and I will see you all next week.
Hitch, have a safe trip, my friend. Congratulations again.
Thank you much.
Good night, guys.